everybody. Welcome to October's astrology forecast. I'm Starlene and this is Mark. How are you guys doing? Hopefully well. What's going on, Mark? How are you doing? How was your September?
Oh, it was September.
It was September.
It was how September normally goes with Jupiter square your natal Uranus Pluto conjunction. So
have you had a boundless amount of energy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it was needed because everything's it's just complete chaos. Like, Clown World has no peak. It just keeps peaking further and further into the abyss. So now it's just kind of, it is what it is.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, it sounds like we should be having an exciting month ahead of us. If you were going to choose something to be a specific highlight, if you will, of this month in October, what would you say?
So it's definitely the second. So the highlight or low light, if you will, I guess, is probably the second week in October, where Jupiter and Pluto both station within like 2.5 days of each other. So that's definitely going to be that's the highlight of the middle part. We have the second eclipse, or we're in the eclipse window. Mm-hmm. So I've seen thousands of people posting, why is everything so weird and wonky right now? We're in the 2-week period between the eclipses, and that means anything goes, anything can happen. It's just, everything is just completely off the rails and off the hook, and that's what it is. And the second eclipse is at 10 degrees Libra on this Wednesday, October 2nd in the afternoon.
The second
is the second of the two eclipses. The first one was right on my Chiron, so that was fun. That one was at 25 Pisces. And
did you have a lot of things come up? Did you have a lot of things surface that was maybe not at the surface?
I don't even know anymore.
You're like, I have no idea. This Neptune's killing me.
I have no idea anymore. I don't know who we are or what we are.
You don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I just move forward and react to chaos. That is my sole function at this point. And it's hard to hit a moving target, so I stay moving.
I mean, that's really true. You just try not to push too hard because it's just like harder. I'm going to keep.
It's harder to hit a moving target, I guess, is the way I should have phrased that. So I just try to keep moving and keep my head below water and out of the line of fire. That's kind of where we're at this point.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So we are actually in September 26th. I think I said October earlier. By the way, Mark is, for some reason, StreamYard thinks that Mark is me. So if you see hello or something in the chat, it could be Mark, could be me. We don't know. It's a mystery.
Or if you see it twice, it could be both of us.
We could both be saying, so we're not losing it. It's just StreamYard has mixed us up and Mark is morphing. It seems appropriate with Neptune on your sun to do that.
Yeah. I may not even be here right now.
You're what is an AI for me? I'm just kidding.
Figment of your imagination.
That's so funny. So, okay. So we are in the middle of eclipse season 2 for 2024. So we had eclipses in April. I believe it was April. And now we're in October, and we're doing, well, we will be in October, and we have an eclipse, new moon eclipse that is on the 2nd. Mark, you were talking about that. Are we going to be able to see it in the US, the eclipse? Do you know?
I have
This
no
is
idea.
the 3rd eclipse, right? Because we had a lunar and a solar and a lunar. Isn't that right? This is the 3rd one in a row, like with the solar eclipse. Is it? Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong about that. I have to look.
I've got this. So there was a lunar eclipse on March 25th, and then the Great American Eclipse Part 2 was on April 8th. And then the September 17th was a lunar eclipse at 25 Pisces. Now this is a solar eclipse at 10 Libra.
Oh, I'm crazy because look what you wrote. I just copied what you wrote. New moon lunar eclipse. So is that me or you?
That is me. That is supposed to be a solar eclipse.
So you're making me crazy. Thank you for that.
I'm like the government. I'm here to make you crazy.
I mean,
and question your reality. So
and the funny part of it is I should know that because and this is a fun fact for anybody watching that doesn't know, you only get a lunar eclipse during a full moon. So if it's a new moon, it's going to be a solar eclipse. So in case you don't know that. But yeah, so Mark was making aspects up over here.
I'm just making shit up at this point. That's the only way to get around the clowns.
I mean, hey, if it works, it works. I'll tell you, it's been a really an interesting experience. Interesting is the best way I can describe it. The last several months. Actually, I would say the last many months, but whatever, who's counting? So what are you expecting specifically when the lunar eclipse is going? Oh my gosh, I keep saying it now. The solar eclipse is going on. What are you expecting then? Like, what are you expecting in the world, expecting us to feel? What are good things and ways in which we can express it? And if we can express it in a healthy way, I don't know.
Yeah. So my prediction at this point is everything's going to everything's going to be exponentially crazier every single day for the foreseeable future is kind of where things are going. No matter what crazy stuff happens today, tomorrow's going to be crazier, and the day after that will be crazier. So that's kind of where we have no limits or boundaries to the number of clowns that are in the Volkswagen at this point.
That's a lot of clowns because the Volkswagens, especially if it's one of the older ones that are like the station wagon Volkswagens, I think those are Volkswagens. I don't know. That could fit a lot of clowns. So yeah,
you can fit a lot.
Interesting.
Of
clowns yeah, that's scary. I know. You know, this is a funny question, but how long do you think the insanity of the world that we live in, when do you think it's going to calm down? It's going to be after the Saturn Neptune in a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
right. So so the reason everything's so chaotic right now, part is there's so many planets at all the outer planets are in the mid to late degrees of the signs that they're in. Uranus is at Pluto's at 29 Capricorn, Neptune's at 28.5 Pisces, Uranus is at 27 Taurus, Saturn's in the middle degrees of Pisces, but once it goes direct, it's going to be in the late, 6 months from now, Saturn's going to be in the last 10 degrees of Pisces. So when you have all the outer planets at the end degrees, and of course they're all going to retrograde, so we're in a state of everything dying and everything being reborn at the same time, and they're backing and forthing. So you get the death, and then you get the rebirth, and you get the death, and then the rebirth, and all the outer planets are all doing this at the same time. So that's why everything feels like it's insane, because it is, because there's a lot of death and a lot of new things being reborn at the same time, and they're just bumping into each other, and you have to kind of figure out which things are dying and which new things that are being born are going to stick around. So that's kind of the difficult part of the clown rotation at this point.
That's interesting.
You can change the clowns, but you still have the circus.
That's funny. That is very funny. It's very interesting too. I was talking to Christopher Pridham earlier. We were talking about how the change of Pluto into Aquarius, and we were going back, he likes evolutionary astrology too, so he likes the looking at Pluto a lot. But we were talking about how the Pluto in Leo generation, it's like they're coming to that relinquishing of the baton to maybe the Pluto in Virgo, the Pluto, and that that just keeps going on, and the progression of how we change in that sense. And it's not like letting go of the people with the Pluto in Leo. They're still obviously a vibrant generation, but at the same time, they hold fast. There's fixed signs. They're kind of in their place. They don't want to let go, so it's like but I feel like it speaks to a global, us as a society, a global society, and how we're just evolving itself. So it's really kind of fascinating to look at it from that perspective. Yeah.
So
very interesting.
Somebody in chat has a interesting question here, I think. How can we navigate through these times? The energy is not really towards being grounded at this point. So what I've been trying to do, and whatever, is you have to, you can watch Clown World, but you can't get too wrapped you can't get too wrapped up into it. Was that some calliope music?
This I didn't even set the whole thing up. I just got it 2 days ago. It's my new phone, but it didn't even know. It was like, oh, this is someone calling.
It's talking to you. So I'd say I try to keep my direct focus right now on things that I can at least have a little bit of control over, like things that I can improve in my immediate areas, because the clown show spectacle is at an all-time high in human history right now. So, I mean, it can be easy to get distracted in that. I would I view it, but I try not to be emotionally involved in the clownery.
Yeah.
I try to like stuff that would normally set me off or whatever. I'm just letting it
Hands
go.
off. Right.
Letting it blow by me, because I know that there's a whole row of clowns behind the main clown boss. There's a never-ending stream, so I'm just trying to so another additional thing is that I think it's very, at least for me, and maybe this is my own personal lesson, I think there are more things that are outside of our control than there normally is. I think there's a whole lot of things that we can't do anything about right now. So I try to focus my time, effort, and energy into things that I can at least have some amount of control, or at least things that I can, if I focus on them, I can kind of push them through, because the lights, the sounds, the smells of everything is so crazy right now that you're not. Uh, it can be easy to get swept away in the stuff, the clown stuff. So I
think that
tried to
is,
not get too high or too low. I just try to process whatever my most immediate problems are, and just hit the road, just keep moving, just keep there's no shortage of fires to put out. I just keep moving. Just keep.
That's a good point too. And, you know, thinking about it from this perspective, because, you know, everything ties into the astrology. I'm sure you think the same way about that, Mark, but we're at that 29th degree. So I just did an amazing interview with Georgia Sathis. I'm not trying to plug it, but I guess I am trying to plug it. If you have not seen it, it's on the other channel, Cosmic Connections. Go check it out. The link is somewhere on my profile, but don't leave this video because that one's already recorded. But we talked about the 29th degree, and we weren't talking about it in a transit sense, but we were talking about it in, you know, the chart of the person with the 29th degree. And it's fascinating because when you get to that spot, it's the culmination of the entirety of that particular zodiac sign we're talking about. But specifically, when we're thinking about where Neptune is right now and where it's, you know, going to be for the next couple of years, we're at that culmination of the entire zodiac. We're starting, you know, we're starting a fresh cycle when Neptune gets into Aries. You know, this is a complete shift. And how long does it take Neptune to get around the zodiac? I want to say 240 or something like that. I don't know how many years it takes to over 200. Yeah. So we're never going to ever see like this type. And I mean, that's true always, but this time period in this moment is special because of that. It's not just Neptune in that space, but all the other planets that Pluto's also at 29 degrees of Capricorn. I mean, that's huge too. They're aspecting each other too. And then we've got Saturn that's not there quite there yet, but is like approaching. So what you were saying in terms of like
Uranus is going to be at 29 Taurus early next year, I think it is.
Yes, it is. And
this is unprecedented. Like,
it doesn't,
ever, probably.
I mean, yes,
to have
doesn't
all
really
of these
happen
happening at the same time is unprecedented.
Right.
Like,
right. So,
and
how do you keep yourself grounded?
Yeah, any one of these things by themselves would be the biggest transit of, you know, that decade or whatever. We've got all of these happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you were saying about, like, I loved what you were saying about the idea of, if you have control over something, great, then do what you can to, you know, do what you need to do with that particular topic. But there's no shortage of stuff that we're going to have to deal with. Like, and I feel like that has been this whole theme of my month in September. But this is like, you know, and my approach has been in this sense, because, you know, this Pluto alone, but all the other planets too, is on my sun and my midheaven. You know, it's like right there. I have a 0 degree sun, a 1 degree midheaven. So like I'm going through this, and I've been going through this because it's crossed over it now twice, Pluto has, and it'll be going back over there soon. Point being is that there's shifts and changes. The way I've been dealing with it is that, okay, I'm handling whatever is in front of me. I'm focused on that, get it to where I need to. And sometimes, you know, my mind will go in another direction, but I bring it back to like, finish this thing, then go to the next, because, you know, until I go to sleep at night, there's not an end of it. It's just a constant, like, things are just, you know, and like learning how to go through that, that way of going with the flow is probably the best thing, the best answer to how to handle it. And then also the other part of that is identifying when it is something that you have something that you have something of control over. Because, I mean, I really love Stoicism. It's like my own personal philosophy that I've taken on. And the whole premise of Stoicism is the idea of like, if you can't control it, don't freak out about it. Don't let it control you, right? By your thoughts or mind or whatever. And, granted, I do watch what's going on in the world and stuff like that, but I don't get wound up in it, because if I do, I mean, anybody could do that, but get in the emotion of it. But if you do, it's not going to bring you down a path that makes you feel good in the long run. Like ask yourself, is this path that I'm going down of, crazy mental thoughts or worry or arguing with somebody about some stupid political thing that really, or is it better to just say, you know what, it's okay. And, you can take this at every level, political, just personal, like if you're irritated, feeling that way, whatever. It's not like it's just, one domain of our life. It's like the entirety of everything is being in this transformation, this change that we're going through. So keeping that balance, identifying which is the best way to handle it, either through, okay, I can handle this, I can change it, I can fix it. I can't fix it, then accepting that and moving into a different direction is the best like maneuvering that you can ever do, but especially right now because things are shifting so much. So yeah. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
I try to think too as like Neptune, like the last degree of Pisces. I kind of view that as like this is the time to like surf the wave, like to just try to be as light as possible and just ride on top of the waves and not get bogged down into every little thing that happens.
Yeah.
Because there's too many things you can get bogged down in. It's like just try to surf the waves as much as possible. And any good thing or any bad thing that happens, something's going to happen 2 hours later that changes that. And that's and like you said, like it's like my days end when my brain doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
it's like I always have something that I have, that has to be done, or animals have to be taken care of, or whatever. And it's like, you just have evening. You have a raccoon story, don't you?
Oh my God, my evening is always that. I just end up, cleaning up the kitchen, whatever, like wash whatever dish might be in the sink, and then going to read, and then reading, and then I wake up and I'm like done reading, like hopefully. Didn't but that's how I end up, like it's how I turn my brain off, just by reading. But the point is, like, until I'm in that, okay, do my little routine to go to, my brain's going constantly. I'm constantly doing a million things. And yes, I do have a wonderful raccoon story, which was not an exciting I had honestly a litany of insanity this couple of I don't know, years that I'll tell you the raccoon story. So, Mark is a fan of cicadas. I don't know. I really honestly thought about taking a little raccoon and putting him in the thumbnail. I still might do that. So my home has like additions built onto it. And one of the additions is like a room that is off of my own bathroom that there's like it would have gone outside, but they added a room on it, and it's my laundry room. And it's really weird how they did it. But one of the a raccoon ended up getting into one of the holes from the eaves where the netting was no more. It just fell out, and I didn't know it. I did not know this, but raccoons can basically scale walls too. So yeah, and I was I have cats, and normally I keep the door shut to not go in there anyway, but the cats, and I go in there to do laundry, and I have laundry in my hands, and I'm swapping it into the dryer, and I hear this rustling, and it's not finished. The laundry room's not finished. There's like the eaves, but the person that built that addition built like all these shelves in the walls, which is great because you could put all your tools and all that jazz in there. So I'm hearing all this and I'm like, what is that noise? I think one of the cats got in with me. I turn around and I'm like catty corner and just went right to it. And it's sitting in the eaves like this. And he's looking right at me. I'm like, oh my God, we both froze. And then the next thing I know, I'm like in my office and I'm like, how did I get here? Like I just disappeared. I think I found a portal actually. So yeah, that was super fun and terrifying. But I ended up getting him out and then sealing up the eaves where the hole was. It's not a hole, it's just like a vent or whatever, but they put a screen over it, just fell out. Sealing that up. And then I didn't realize when we sealed it up with like a more of like a wire one so that it couldn't be just ripped down like the mosquito net. And then the next day, the next night, I'm sleeping because it's right next to my bedroom. And I just hear noise in the ceiling because that part of the ceiling is over my bedroom, but even though there's no access. And yeah, we actually locked a raccoon up there into the ceiling. So, oh my gosh, that was a nightmare. And we did get him down, but that was terrifying. And then I tell Mark the story and he tells me his insane story about a rabid raccoon, and that scared me and I couldn't sleep. Oh my gosh. So I think raccoons are my power animal at this point because honestly, I did pull one of my cards. I thought I had it in here. I pulled one of my power animal cards and I got the raccoon, which is the weirdest thing because I just was like right in that time, I'm like, oh, this is so weird. Maybe they have something to teach me. And that's the card that I pulled. So I don't know. It's about knowing and the message on the raccoon card. I love it too for this moment. It's like knowing that you have all the resources that you need to get things done. So, you know, I had a panic attack. I can't lie, like not like real panic attack. I was just like, oh my God, did that just happen kind of moment? You know, I mean, I think anybody face to face with the raccoon would feel that way if they weren't expecting it, especially. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I know I pulled a raccoon card. I feel like I did have all the things to deal with at that moment too. I kind of employed what I had just talked about too, with, you know, dealing with what you have in your face, in your hands. Needless to say, I hung the clothes that I brought into my, like, portaled into my office. I didn't actually like go back into the laundry room until someone came over to help me. I am a chicken.
You got to have raccoon backup.
Seriously, I'm like, no, I need a man here. I can't, like, it was in the middle of the day. So I must have woke it up when I went in there, and it was like, cause it like rustled around and I'm like, oh no, it's a cat. Like the cat got in here because my cat has Saturn will go in there and get up in the rafters and then be like, haha, I'm here and you're not. And then I have to like chase him and get him down. And that's not fun. But yeah, no, it was a raccoon. So anyway, I think I have the resources to make it through the raccoon's invasion. Oh,
yeah, I a few 3 or 4 months, I don't know, sometime this year, we had a raccoon that obviously had like rabies, because it was like out in the middle of the day and it was like disoriented and falling all over the place. But it was in the horse barn. And so like I couldn't really get to the horses. So
oh my gosh.
I had to get a pitchfork that we used to like shovel the horses' stalls and stuff. And I had to call the rabid raccoon, and I coaxed it into sitting on the pitchfork so that I could pick it up and carry it out. Luckily, this was a younger raccoon and not one of the giant ones. So I had to
the one
carry
I
it
thought
on
was
the
big
pitchfork outside and put it out in the pasture so it could find somewhere peaceful to transition. But yeah, that was I had to have a lengthy conversation with the rabid raccoon to get it to climb onto the pitchfork so I could remove it. So that's my raccoon story.
What is that? I wonder what's going on. I know they did that once before in another area of my house, like where they didn't actually get in, but they were trying to, because I have an avocado tree on that side of my house, and they love the avocados, the little shits. They end up like getting them before I do sometimes, and I'm like, it looks like a perfectly good avocado. You pick it up, it's like bitten at it. I'm like, that's not good. But they like that. I think they live in that tree. So I kind of like, and then I went, of course, on the deep dive of raccoons and how to like, humanely get rid of them in your property and stuff like that. And one of the people that I watched on YouTube talking about that, it's like, oh, raccoons, we have like 50 in a square kilometer or a square mile. I'm like, oh my God, is there really that many raccoons in the world? Like, that seems impossible. I think he lived up by you, though.
Yeah. Oh,
so anyway,
yeah,
if you're curious too, Mark is also, he is the raccoon whisperer, Christine. If you're curious, Mark is using my name in the chat. So let's see what else is going on in the beginning of the month. We have the new moon, lunar eclipse. Why do I keep saying new moon, lunar eclipse? It's the solar eclipse. And I think, you know what? That's over the Pacific Ocean. We're not going to actually get to see the solar eclipse, if I'm not mistaken. But
I'm fine with that.
I was just going to say, that's okay. The next thing we have the next exact aspect that isn't like a moon aspect, because those are so quick. We have on the 4th, Venus makes a trine to Saturn. Venus trine Saturn. And then on the 5th, Venus, Mars, Saturn, water grand trine. Okay, that's like a highlight. What do you think about the 5th and wrong one. The 5th and the 6th. And the Venus. I don't know why I didn't add that.
Yeah, so the exact Venus Saturn trine is on the afternoon of the 4th. Mm-hmm. And then like by the 5th, I think, is when the Venus Mars Saturn water grand trine is at its closest between the 3 planets. Right. So Venus is in Scorpio, Mars is in Cancer, Saturn's in Pisces, and this grand trine is going to be around the 15-degree area of the water sign. So if you have a planet in the middle degrees of the water sign, that's definitely going to be an opportunity for you to play your cards, say like after the eclipse on the 2nd, and say by the 8th, between the 2nd and the 8th, that Venus Mars Saturn water grand trine is going to be pretty tight that whole time. So that's your opportunity period between like October 3rd and 8th, if you have things to. So Venus transit is going to look favorably upon things. Mars is your energy, action, aggression. Then Saturn is, work, career, discipline. It can be like home stuff also, because Saturn rules structures. So it can be, and I can attest to this at both home and work. There's been a high amount of rearranging and decluttering and organizing and things like that I've been experiencing lately. So I say those energies are already up.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense too with the 29th degree. You're like tying up something, and I mean, I know that's with these outer planets, it's like a long time coming. It's not like a day or even a week, years that we're going through this. But it's almost like, when you do a deep decluttering, you're not doing that in one day either. Even if you have a small place, the chances of you really deeply decluttering yourself, if you have any room like full of stuff, you probably, it would take you time. And it's a process. And I think that kind of speaks to tying up of a cycle and like reforming a cycle into something, you know, something different. So I think that's kind of cool. And like the water grand trine, Venus, Mars, that visceral thing. And I like to think of Saturn as before many moons ago, I remember, I have to figure out what his name is, but there was an astrologer that was on YouTube. It was when YouTube first started. And he said Saturn was no. And that always stuck in my brain. I kind of think there's some, you know, logic to that. Saturn stops us from stuff, right? It keeps us like, you know, he was just giving keywords like Saturn is no. And thinking about it from that perspective, it puts in the reality, physical things, like you were saying, Mark, into the equation. So, you know, Venus, Mars. But, you know, I think that this is a good thing. Like a grand trine is more of a positive aspect, wouldn't you say, than something negative? But I think the Saturn puts the like, I want to do Venus, Mars stuff, which is this visceral things, cleaning, organizing, whatever, into the physical world. I don't know. I probably just said what you said, but in like a different weird Aquarian way.
No, I agree with what you said, but yeah, it's a Saturn.
Well, yeah,
Saturn gives a little bit of structure to the Venus Mars trine.
Yes. So that'll be good. I mean, that'll last a couple days, right? In the very beginning of the month, right? The grand trine energy, it's like the 5th to 6th, whatever.
I would say I would work on using that energy from October 3rd to October 8th. That's where I would use that, because then after that we're on to something else. But that will be the highlight of it there. Although Mars and Saturn will stay in that trine for a while, but that's the juicy part there, is that like October 3rd through the 8th.
That makes sense. And then that gives us almost a week to just kind of like use the energy after the solar eclipse to, you know, do you think solar eclipses have like a negative connotation to them, or more lunar eclipses are, or does it really depend on what they are? Because I always wonder about the solar eclipses in that sense.
I've seen people say that, you know, one's positive and one's negative and whatnot. And I found it kind of just goes like where it's hitting in your chart.
That's true.
I've not found that one is always good and one's always bad at all.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense too. Looking at it from, it's an energy that could be either way. It depends on the person's, what they're going through. So, okay, so we can move on the 6th. So we're going to be working with that grand trine on the 4th through 8th. The 6th, we have a new energy here. This is Mercury squaring Mars in Libra, Cancer. So Mercury squaring Mars, that could be intense communication.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like Mars in Cancer is very defensive, usually very crabby, because Cancer's the crab. So Mercury square, Mercury is how you communicate, your mental processes. So Mercury square Mars, I would just say, don't necessarily assume that something somebody says should be taken as an attack or a threat or whatever. That's a good opportunity to practice what we talked about a couple minutes ago about, you know, letting the little stuff just like fly over your shoulder.
Yeah.
You know,
someone in the chat said locus of control, and that's it. If you have the locus of control, if not, it's not for you to worry about. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a good thing for us to be thinking about when we're moving into the month of October. Good deal. And then we move on to the 8th. We have a couple different aspects going on. The Venus trine Mars exacts there on the 8th, and then Mercury trines Jupiter. So this happens early morning time for both of them. Although the Venus Mars was already being felt when the grand trine that we just talked about from the 4th. Yeah. So we are moving into this, and we do have Mercury trining Jupiter at the same time. They're not aspecting, the two aspects are not aspecting each other, but they're happening during the same time. So Mercury trine Jupiter. What's your thoughts on Mercury and Jupiter? Because first it's like Mercury and Mars, and then it's 2 days later. Okay, so maybe it's not as intense.
So so Mercury's still loosely square to Mars at that point, but it's so Mercury trine Jupiter. Mercury is the minutia, Jupiter's the big picture. Mm-hmm. So to me, when I see Mercury trine Jupiter, that's you find new information that you need to use to update your big picture of how you think the world works. So you can dig through the details at that time and get it to adjust your big picture outlet's not the right word. To adjust your big picture by how you view things work. I can't think of the word I want, and I'm probably not going to be able to.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because you're adjusting the idea of what you're thinking about in the terms of big picture, yourself. So that adjusting that makes sense with the mind too, because with the Mercury, we're putting our minds to a certain, in a certain angle. And when it's connecting to Jupiter, it's definitely want the expansion of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So Susie says in the chat that eclipses are real if you get a direct hit. And that is very true. If it's directly hitting something in your chart, there's definitely usually an intensity there. Did you say what this last lunar eclipse was on your sun? Not your sun.
On your Chiron. It was Chiron. Exactly like Chiron. So wow. Yeah, I have so many huge transits operating at once. It's almost hard for me to sort out what's.
Jesus.
Again, I just have so many things coming at me every day that it's just like I'm just riding the waves.
Riding the waves. I hear you.
Riding the waves.
Yeah, definitely understand that. So then when we move on a little bit,
as far real quick, as far as what she said about the eclipses there, I've kind of found that like 3 degree, like, because I've had this discussion a million times about what kind of orbs do you use with eclipses. I've kind of found that 3 degrees seems to be the area where I can guarantee it'll be felt. Obviously, if it's exact, it's going to be much more powerful. But I find that I feel them out to 3 degrees. It's kind of where.
That makes sense. I mean, the closer in orb something is, of course, the stronger you're going to feel it too. So it might be the more intense it is. You just feel it. It's just not the, but eclipses, that's perhaps they are, energetically, intense. They are the luminaries. I always think because of the idea of an eclipse is amazing to me, kind of one of those mind-blowing moments because what an eclipse is the shadow, whether we're looking at it, a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse, it's just the shadow of what it just fascinates me because that we're aligned in such a way for specifically, if you think about a solar eclipse, we're aligned in such a way that we can see the totality of the eclipse, and it's exact with where the moon is and the sun is and the shadow of the earth. It's exact. If we look at, for instance, Venus going over the sun, that's also can be eclipsed, but we would see a humongous, or just a dot, right, going over it. We wouldn't see the entirety of the sun being blocked out. The fact that we can have the moon right where it is, and it's just blocked out, the exact, ratio of it, it kind of makes me think it is something matrix like there's some divine, intention behind what we're built in the universe, to have this exactness, because it just blows my mind. I don't know, maybe this is just my crazy Aquarian side thinking, but I feel like there's things like that, just there's something so much more than we don't even know, we can't even express, but it's like an endless fascination to keep digging to see it. So yeah, there you go. After we have this October 8th that we just talked about, we then move into the fun retrograde station period of October. On the 9th, we have Jupiter station retrograde, and Jupiter stays retrograde for about 4 months, I think. And what are you feeling about Jupiter station retrograde? And that happens, by the way, at 2 Gemini.
21 Gemini.
Oh, yeah, I should put my glasses on. I'm just kidding. 21 Gemini.
You did.
Dang, maybe I should take them off.
Yes. Right. So, Jupiter stays in the sun. I'm looking for a starting point. So Jupiter stays in a sign for about a year usually. So Jupiter frequently shows like what the pop culture is for the time. So you'll kind of see like what's big in like movies and music and TV shows and things like that by what sign Jupiter's in. So also Jupiter going retrograde tends to have an adverse effect on the economy, which has already had adverse effects. So Jupiter is. So we just had the Jupiter Saturn square a couple months ago. That's actually the first of 3 hits. So the second hit's going to come up in a couple months, I think it is. So usually, because like Jupiter has to do with like financial flow also. So when Jupiter's retrograde, that means like things are going to be stuck financially for a little while. And since Jupiter had squared Saturn and Jupiter moves much faster than Saturn, now that Jupiter's retrograde, it's going to start getting closer back to the square with Saturn. And so as that Jupiter-Saturn square tightens up with Jupiter retrograde, then I'd say that the short-term economic forecast is going to be on the rough side. So
it's interesting to look at these cycles when you look at Jupiter and Saturn for this example, because we haven't had the squares like Jupiter and Saturn. We've had an opposition since then, but since 2016. So when you look at these outer planets and their cycles with each other, you can see the patterns and what's going on, like a bigger scale. it was interesting what you said about the retrograde, because I didn't really ever put that in my mind, where it could be about what's going on in the pop world and that sort of thing. But I mean, it makes sense because it's about what's going on, you know, outside of the self, because Jupiter is larger than the self. But when you look at the Jupiter Saturn, you know, like that pattern that you were talking about, I think you can see the bigger picture. I mean, maybe thinking about too what was going on in 2016 and how it could be related to something that's going on right now with this Jupiter Saturn. We did have the conjunction in 2020, the Jupiter and Saturn too, or 2020. So, you know, we have had this, but when you look at those evolutions of these planets, when they make these conjunctions and squares and oppositions, that helps you kind of map things out. And I always think Jupiter and Saturn are the best at the planning. So those are a specific pair that I like to kind of pay attention to. So yeah, because I think that has a lot to do with us as like how we are planning. We're, you know, evolving as a species on this earth, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And by the way, that last one happened in, shoot, I just had it. The last one happened August 19th, and the next one will happen December 24th, and then the next one will happen June 15th of 2025. So that's those 3 hits that we're getting, and that's like a pattern, and then it won't happen again till 2035, and in between them we'll have an opposition, but that's, you know, another story. So this is the current, you know, quarter of this Jupiter Saturn dance, if you will, around the zodiac. So we're in this quarter of it, you know, and this is the first quarter, if you will, if you want to think about it like that, because we had the conjunction. It was on December 20th, I think it was on 22nd, 2020. So now we're having this first square, and then you'll see the evolution, and you can plan things out in this particular instance of how you can maneuver and, you know, bigger picture things that you're kind of looking for. So yeah, that's a good point.
The 2020 Jupiter Saturn conjunction was at 0 Aquarius, where Pluto
right on my sun.
Yep, where Pluto's been hovering for the last couple years. So,
exactly.
So Pluto's definitely, and other things you can see where that Pluto hitting the Jupiter Saturn conjunction has played out also.
Right.
I'll leave it at that.
Right. It is interesting when you look at it from that perspective, because it lets you, you know, and the chart of the United States was having the Pluto return. So, you know, our Pluto, United States Pluto, our Pluto as a country is 0 Aquarius. Is that correct? I think that is correct.
Yeah.
Or is it
our Pluto? It's like the United States Pluto is like 27 Capricorn.
Oh, okay. I just thought about that. Yeah, and I wasn't quite sure what degree it was. Okay, there you go. But still, it's like we're going through that whole process of evolution. I think that's an interesting take to it. So after we get Jupiter station retrograde, can you wait before we move on? Can you give some tips to people if they were thinking about how they would look at this cycle in Jupiter retrograde? Like, what might be some good things for people to do during the cycle of Jupiter while it's going retrograde? Like, you know, you mentioned that it might not be as good economically. So is there things we could do to counterbalance that?
Right. So I'd say for like the next 4 months would be to solidify or expand your religious, maybe not religious, spiritual, philosophical, mental terrain. Learn where there can be some perspective shifts that can help you mentally deal with clown world.
That would be good.
improve your clown whisperer skills. So that you can
Improve
communicate
them.
with the clowns on a better level.
I don't know if I want to communicate with clowns. They're kind of scary looking. At least some of them. Who wants to stand at the podium and like try to talk? Those ones, especially.
Yes, especially.
That's funny.
Just on that note, I guess without getting too much into detail, I think I lost that thought already. Yeah, it's gone. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So it was it'll come back or it won't. And then it went to the thought gods.
It went to thought heaven.
Are you sure it was heaven? Oh goodness.
No, it went somewhere.
Yeah, I know. It went somewhere.
I guess that means I shouldn't have said what I was gonna. I was prevented from saying what I was gonna say.
Oh, the devil made me do it.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Then what we have, and I'm actually really looking forward to this because I'm over Pluto already, although I have much Pluto to go through with an early stellium Aquarius stellium. That's besides the point. The next thing that happens is on the 11th, Pluto makes station direct. It's been retrograde for a few months, and it's going to exit Capricorn and leave the Capricorn energy and be full on into Aquarius on the 11th. So gosh, this happens right after the Jupiter station. Do you think they're kind of the energy of them are gonna be connected to each other?
Yeah, so yes and no. So they're not aspecting each other, which is good.
Right.
But since when a planet stations, like the energy of that planet is kind of highlighted for a week on either side because the planet's really at a standstill, kind of for several weeks. So you got the Jupiter expansion, even though it's kind of it's retrograde, it's kind of an inward expansion.
Bless you.
Thank you. But then, of course, the Pluto. So this will be the last Pluto station of our lifetime in Capricorn. So at that point, we're kind of at about 5 weeks left of Pluto in Capricorn for our lifetime. Because November 18th is when Pluto enters Aquarius for good, for the next 20 years. So,
and what kind of wisdom do you think you could bestow upon us with the Aquarius?
I'm not sure about how much wisdom I'll be bestowing, but
I'm expecting wisdom from you, 29 Pisces. Okay. I'm just expecting it. I'm anticipating it.
Yeah. So again, I think the more properly we can identify the old things that are moving on or that are being destroyed outside of our control, like the more we can. This is going to sound totally just batshit crazy and counterintuitive. So I think the more we can the better we can identify the things that are dying and beyond help. Just are the systems, the way government operates, just any kind of power structure that you can see is on its last leg. I try to focus on the negative of that and look at the things that I will be glad are gone, and I try to start pushing towards better things. Um, that can replace those. And so like the less time mourning over the things that are 99.9% dead, and the more we can put that energy into things that are going to help us in the future, I think that's kind of the spot. And the thing about trying to focus on the bad things of the systems that are dying is we can be appreciative that those things are leaving. And so as we, you know, now's a perfect time to push forward new ideas and corrections on things as the old things are dying. Your audio I can't hear you.
Okay, I muted myself because I was typing and I didn't want to.
No, you're
anyway.
fine.
But yes, you're right. I'm starting to talk forgetting that I was muted. Yeah, no, I was vibing with it too. So, but honestly, what I feel like that I can think of many systems that you were mentioning. Like, we live in the United States, so I'm sure this is happening globally. And from my conversations with people around the globe, this is, you know, that's the perception. But of course, my plant is United States, and that's where I live. But I can think of many systems in the United States that are insanely broken, that need to be revamped. And that is a difficult thing to do because at times, because we do hold on to what is familiar, even though it's broken. You know, we do that. I say we as in like the collective, not like any one particular person. But we do that out of like, maybe like a fear of the unknown and hold on to like the wound and the difficulty. Sometimes people do that in relationships. I see that a lot. It's like, this is what we know, it's comfortable, but then there's the unknown, which could be even worse or could be way better, which is usually the case, is usually better, but we get fearful, and that's just a human thing that we do. But you know, moving into that idea of, you know, it's okay, that the transformation is okay. I think that's another way to not get caught up in the idea of it has to be a certain way or it's not positive. And I think that we should all kind of embrace that a little bit. I think these planets that are moving in these outer directions like this it's giving a chance to open up to be able to experience the ability to let go and to move into a direction that isn't necessarily what we already know is going to look like, you know? And I think embracing that is healthy. It keeps us also not stuck, you know, because we get stuck. We're humans. I think that's our nature, to be stuck. You know, it's like people talk about addictions and things like that. And I think that that's kind of our nature, to not necessarily to be addicts, but we're just inclined to repetition and doing the same thing over and over. That's just like, you know, I don't know if all of the mammals or, you know, creatures or beings on Earth are, but humans are just like that. And until we get kind of hard-headed with it, but, you know, letting the flow happen is where you kind of get to the point where you don't feel so much like you're frozen or in fear or stressed out about the situation. I think that helps you to open up and to accept, you know, that which is not necessarily known and is maybe a little scary, but is something that you're going to find more healing in the long run. You guys are having a whole conversation in the chat with my pseudonym over here. Oh my gosh. Mark is actually talking using my name. So don't be like trying to say anything crazy, Mark. They're going to be like, Starlene, you did it. I'm going to be like, no, I didn't. It was not me. That's so funny. StreamYard messed up and Mark is me today. So whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that's important. I think that's the best way to handle it, is like, you know, seeing it for that transition. And oh, it's so hard. The butterfly has such a difficult time. I can only imagine what's it like to be a caterpillar that goes into a cocoon and changes into a butterfly. That can't be easy, but it comes out and it's so beautiful. And it's a birthing of something new. And I think that's where we're at, right?
Yeah. So here's a wisp of 29 Pisces astrological insight. So this is kind of this kind of, I don't know why this popped into my head, but that the story of Don Quixote, who was fighting windmills because he thought they were these monsters, but actually they were just windmills. So I kind of think, like, how many things are we fighting against that are not really there, or not really issues, but there's maybe it's keeping us from fighting things that we should be fighting or correcting. Because like, another part of this is Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all in aspect to each other. Uranus is trine Pluto, and Neptune is sextile to both of those. So we've got Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all in pretty tight aspect to each other for kind of an extended period of time here. So it's like, what kind of things in our brain are we fighting that are actually real, and which ones are not real, or if they are real, they're beyond us being able to fix, and maybe our energy should be directed elsewhere.
That's interesting. And I never heard that story about the windmills before. I never heard that. But that is interesting too. And when you think about it, so if you think about this from a vibrational astrology sense, and I know most people probably aren't vibrational astrologers here, that those trines and sextiles, the Pluto, what 3 planets was it? It was Uranus, Neptune, and
Pluto.
And Pluto. It was Pluto. Those trines and sextiles are 3 vibration and family of 3 vibrations, because they're 1/3 or 1/6. A sextile is 1/6 of the circle, right? So 3 vibration. I love the idea of the 3 vibration is a need for flow, right? And if the flow isn't there, it can be disruptive. And I think that this is such a perfect example of, the potential to move and allow things to flow. You can essentially move with it, but if you're not, it can be disruptive to you. So it's good to kind of keep yourself in a space of knowing that you want to progress and move forward. You want to, not necessarily be progressive. you want to progress yourself. I had to make that clear. But, whatever your thing is, you want to move forward, and you want to grow, and you want to evolve, and you don't want to stay frozen. Because hello, we don't want to be cavemen still. They probably had an okay life, though, when you think about it. We want to move forward. So I think that's the key element to it. And that's the 3 vibe. That's the 3 vibe all the way. That's the movement is necessary, or there's disruption. And I think that's something that's really important, especially with these outer planets. They're begging us to do that. Yeah. And these planets are kind of in orb through most of next year. Isn't that right? Or
I think up through,
I'll pull up Sirius.
So just to kind of back up, how much of a state of change we're in. All the outer planets are in earth and water signs right now, but once we get into, this starts taking shape a little bit next year, but once we get into spring of 2026,
that's when it gets
all the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're all in air and fire signs.
Mm-hmm.
So all for just, less than 2 years from now, all the outer planets are in different signs, different elements, instead of this big, 2 earth and 2 water we have now. By then we've got Uranus in Gemini, trine Pluto in Aquarius. Then we have Saturn and Neptune both in Aries. So it's that's a very vast, different reality than where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of full speed ahead, rapid change and things like that have, new things taking off. But just like we still have the same kind of outer planet aspects, but they're in different signs, different elements. It's radically different vibe at that point, and that's less than 2 years away.
Wow.
Things are as much as things have changed in the last 4 years. I mean, we're going to have, an extensive amount of change over the next 2 years. Although it's going to be more of the new coming out and things moving forward in leaps and bounds, more than just the march of destruction we're coming out of.
Yeah, that's definitely not time to hold on to something that isn't necessarily what's serving you. I think that's a good way to look at it, and a thing to do to ask yourself, like, do I hold on? Do I choose a different path? Because, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right.
I mean, if that's what you've done, then okay, keep doing it. Like, just whatever. You got to learn your lesson at some point, Or do you choose something else? Do you choose a different path? And I mean, I feel like that's happening on so many different levels of our society, our earthly society, that, we're just evolving. I was having this discussion the other day with a friend of mine, and we were talking, it's a friend that I've known since, the 80s and like most of my life. And we were talking about, in the 90s, and how we were like, I don't even know. Did we have phones back then in the late 90s? Probably, but they were just like the cell phones. They were just like nothing phones, right?
I personally didn't have a cell phone until like 2002.
I don't remember the exact. I think I did have one in the late 90s, but it was also because I was, had kids and stuff like that. They were young. My kids were born in the 90s. But I mean, they were nothing. I didn't have the smartphone until like 2012 or so. I mean, and that was like late for the smartphones. I remember being like, oh, I finally got a smart, stupid phone. And everybody was like, we did that like 5 years ago. Like, whatever, I don't care. Like, it's like, and it was the worst phone too, when you think about it, but that's besides the point. My point is, I was talking to my friend, and we were saying, like, think about it in our lifetime, how far we have come. And this friend is about my age. And so we were saying how far we have come from when we were in the late 90s and having like these jacked up cell phones that didn't even have just for instance, the cell phone didn't even have like an image on it. It was just digits. That now we're in the space of having this technology that's just in our hands. And it's so good, because what happened is we both end up getting phones, which is like just ironically around the same time. And we're both like talking about like, oh, this technology and this new stuff and how to maneuver through it. And it's fascinating when you think about it, because when you think about the changes that we've had in that small amount of time, it's been less than a lifetime. So that's what we're in 25. So, or 24. So like 25 to 26 years ago, thinking about that, how far we've come. If you go 25, 26 years prior to that, we did not have the same leaps and bounds that we had in the last 25 years, you know, and when the next 25 years, that amount of leaps and bounds is going to be shortened to like all that extra stuff that we would do in these like most recent 25 years would be more like 10 years or something. And it kind of blows your mind, and it makes you think to yourself, where does that stop? Where does that end to the point where you know, like, or does it, you know, like, when does the speeding up stop? Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, does it make sense, or is this totally out and to lunch or prairie talk?
So we had a discussion about I keep saying Clown World has no peak, but it is not yet peaked. There's going to be a point where the level of insanity is so much every second of every day, like pretty much how things are now, that like that's going to be boring. That's going to every day is exponentially crazier than the day before right now. But at a point, there will be a peak to Clown World. And I don't know that if it's people will just get tired of the constant, you know, drama and chaos and will want to deconnect from the circus, or what exactly is going to happen. But I would say by time we get to early 2026, I mean, hopefully the fascination with the never-ending train wreck that is our reality at this point, the never-ending smash-up derby, will just no longer be interesting, and will just kind of, you know, become a backdrop to where people aren't plugged into it anymore, and we can, you know, actually, you know, put our time and energy into our local communities and things, which is, I think that's part of the good side of the Pluto and Aquarius is less locked into what Hollywood's doing, and more hooked into what your local community is doing. And I think that's how we push things in the right direction over the next 2 years is, you know, maybe less screaming at the people in Washington, D.C., and putting that energy into making our own surrounding areas better so that we don't care what they're doing in Washington, D.C. I mean, it kind of feels like that's the way things are going. Just we still haven't hit the peak of Clown World yet. But
the pinnacle.
At a point, it's just gonna break and shatter into a million pieces. And that may happen by November 18th of this year.
Why by November 18th? What's the trigger there?
That's the last day of Pluto and Capricorn in our.
Got it. Yeah. Right. Wow. And I didn't even think about that. Was there any specific events when Pluto transited into Aquarius before? Do you remember the day that, like, right, the surrounding days around that? I don't remember any specific off the top of my head. I'm sure I could go look up headlines.
Yeah,
But I like what you said about the idea of the embracing the more local parts of yourself, and the idea of we've become collectively so online and connected to the devices and the things, the technology that I was just ranting about a moment ago. We've become so connected to it, and that's not bad, but there is a pinnacle of that, and that's, I think, it would be more ideal. I'm a big fan of not as much government as what we have. I think we're definitely over, at least in the United States, are federal government's a little bit on the too much side, a lot of it on the too much side.
Yep.
It's just too big. Like, I'll
Yeah.
just put it that way. It's just total overreach. But here we are. And, you know, I obviously we need governments to make things happen, but, you know, putting it back into the place of the person and what is in the surroundings, what are your neighbors doing? What is your community doing? I think that's such a good way to look at it, instead of just feeling like everything is chaotic and you can't have control over anything. Like, going back to that locus of control, we have the control over what we have in front of us, what we have, you know, when you think about it, we don't even have control of like our bodies. Our bodies do crazy things like get sick and things like that, but we can control just our reaction to what happens, you know? And that's also like a big part of it too, is controlling that which you can, you know, dealing with that which you can, making it better. And I think that bringing it back to the self, the community, the family, you know, the community, if you're not like, you know, have a family of your own specifically in the area, what is your family like in your neighborhood, that sort of thing. I think those are all really key points to the Aquarian connection, this Pluto and Aquarius thing. And maybe I'm just wishful thinking too, partly because I want to not die in the next few years, because I have the Pluto, I mean, I have all those Aquarian planets in early degrees, so I'm just kidding about the dying part. I hope, but getting beat up, yeah, that's true. But I think if you flow with the energy of transformation, the beatings will be less. They'll be less difficult and intense. So I don't know. I just think it's going to help us as a collective more than maybe we can even see at this point.
Right. And I think so this is something that I've seen a lot the last 4 years on social media, is like people
decentralization. Sorry, that word just came to my mind, you know.
Right. The people seeing the differences between them and their bloodline family, and people seeking, you know, realize that maybe people who aren't bloodline, you know, are still there. I think there's a reimagining of what like the actual family unit is and stuff. And while that can go to some very dark places, there can also be some good things out of that, to where you'll maybe see more people building families out of their local communities and stuff, and less of you know, if for whatever reasons your bloodline family does not jive with you, maybe people will be more interested in looking at, you know, building their own family out of people that they choose. I did want to, I just pulled up the year. So Pluto first entered Aquarius March 23rd of 2023. And what was funny then is, I mean, we had lots of there was lots of big political events around that time. But what the thing that jumped out was on March 14th, so that's, you know, 9 days before Pluto enters Aquarius, OpenAI launches ChatGPT, a large language model for ChatGPT, which can respond to images. It can process up to 25,000 words. So ChatGPT actually started 9 days before Pluto entered Aquarius the first time.
Wow, I had no idea. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, that was just one, but now there's like a million of them, different types of similar things, you know.
I mean, there was several other things, like a week on either side of that. There's well, just so like China reelected their president. Um, Silicon Valley Bank, the 16th largest bank in the United States, fails, creating the largest bank failure since 2008. There was another interesting one here that seems to like still be playing out and stuff. Brazil and China signed an agreement to trade in their own currencies, ceasing the usage of the United States dollar as an intermediary. So a lot of things happen right in that period, which we still see kind of being like revisited.
The currency one is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the global scale, that's a big deal to not trade in the American dollars. I know that there's been wars over that one.
Yeah.
Literally, Wow. I didn't know that I didn't look at that before. So that's interesting. And I mean, the idea of ChatGPT makes me think that seems so Aquarian, that whole AI thing does.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just the way that it's expanded now, even just since March.
It's unreal.
Yeah, that's only a year and a half ago. And just now, just the things that you can do with it now, just compared to a year and a half ago, it's just crazy.
It really, really, really is. Every time, like, you turn around, it's something new with it.
Yeah.
I saw a video, and he showed an example of taking a picture. I don't know if it was ChatGPT or it was another one, but of the, like, opening the refrigerator and taking a picture of it. So it had the contents of the fridge, and then like uploading it. I don't know. Like I said, it could have been another AI, but I was like, oh my God, what is this? And the AI was like, you have that. This is what you can make. Here's the recipe. I was like, I mean, that's cool. But, yeah. Oh, you can make a ketchup sandwich, like whatever. But I mean, it was kind of cool. That's cool. That's a neat thing. But like, obviously AI can do a million kind of things there now at this point. But it's fascinating that, the technology is cool, but it also is scary because at the same time, it's like, bad actors could get a hold of it. And I'm sure that's something that could potentially be a thing. Because every other day I see a video, or not video necessarily, but a headline or something like that about this person, that person with AI and, like ethics and stuff like that. There's a lot of issues revolving around that, and we're such at the early stages of this technology that, I mean, it's bound to be where we come into a stumbling block of something, and it's like fixing it because we didn't know the problem was going to happen in the first place. It's kind of like how, I mean, the internet was like that in the beginning too. It's like nobody really knew things, virus protection, for instance. If you didn't have virus protection, you could easily get a virus, but now everybody, it's installed on computers when you get Windows. It's like already there. So like, like you come to full circle with that, with things like that, and the new technology when that always happens. And now I sound very Aquarian speaking about technology like that, but I mean, that is a thing. And then you come full circle. So, just trying to like maneuver through that and keeping yourself safe at the same time is a good idea. But I feel like this is part of our evolution transformation that you were mentioning throughout, the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where were we? We were somewhere. I don't even know. I got lost. I think we were the 13th.
Yeah, that was, I guess, our 45-minute tangent on the Pluto station.
On Pluto station. So, we're going to have to take that as a clip and just throw it up alone.
Yeah. So, whatever after the Pluto station is probably the next.
So we have, so that's the 13th. We have several things going on the 13th. That's Mercury squaring Pluto, and Pluto just stationed direct. And that's in Libra and Capricorn. And then we have Mercury enter Scorpio. So Mercury's changing signs as well. And then the sun is trining Jupiter in Libra and Gemini. So the 13th is going to be a busy day. Mercury squaring Pluto, probably, you know, thinking about the idea, and especially since it's also moving into Scorpio right after that, squares Pluto in the morning. And then if you're in the United States, at least it's the morning, and then enters into Scorpio in the afternoon. So it's like there's a shifting within the context of Mercury for that day in and of itself. And then it's also making a square to Pluto. So yeah. What are your feelings on the 13th?
So to me, you're gonna love this one. So to me, like Mercury square Pluto is, you know, thoughts about death. So I wouldn't, and then Mercury entering Scorpio, which rules death in the afternoon. So to me, that doesn't necessarily mean that like everyone isn't going to know someone that dies, but maybe there's a big event that day or something like that, you know, or something that makes, you know, maybe somebody famous dies and that makes people aware of their own mortality, something like that. Because I think, you know, Mercury square Pluto, I think, is something that like shifts our consciousness in some way. But then, you know, you've got the sun trine Jupiter later in the day, and that's at the same degrees as the Mercury Jupiter trine on October 8th was, except now it's the sun trine Jupiter. So to me, there is like a, you know, things feel a little better later in the day than it does, you know, in the morning. Probably feels kind of, you know, dark and heavy a little bit in the morning with the Mercury square Pluto. And then, you know, sun trine Jupiter is, you know, you see the silver lining.
Yeah. And that's so, you know, 29 degrees right there to, you know, that culmination of everything. So I can see where the dark thoughts might come in, like on the idea of death. I mean, and even it's interesting. Number 13 is a death card in the tarot too. And not that that's related to the astrology, but it's interesting. So that happens on the 13th. So at least the 13th will be lighter. And the good thing about that is Mercury does move fast. So Mercury isn't going to be tormenting us too long. And then we move on to the 14th. The 14th, we have the Sun square Mars in Libra Cancer and Venus opposite Uranus. And Scorpio and Uranus. That's great. 20.
Yeah, I did it again. So that's supposed to be Taurus. That's two errors. That's 2 errors for me on this episode.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to fix it. It is Scorpio. Okay. It's Scorpio Taurus. Yeah, that's the opposition. So I always think with the Scorpio, not Scorpio Taurus, but maybe this is off the Scorpio Taurus. I always think with Venus and Uranus, I tell people, have fun, enjoy the moment. Don't do anything you wouldn't not want to do like in a week. Because like this energy is like, I want to go have fun and don't run off and get married to someone you just met is the whole, you know, like the idea of it. Because it's fun. You can caught up in the whirlwind of the moment and the Scorpio Taurus. But then, you know, in a week, you're like, why did I do this? Who is this person? You know, don't do that. Yeah. But enjoy the moment, you know, just don't make any commitments that you won't want to keep.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about the Uranus, Venus?
Right. So, I mean,
and the Sun, Mars.
Yeah. So the Sun squares Mars. So unfortunately, that's in the middle. That's, you know, 4:15 a.m. So Sun square Mars is a surge of energy, and even though squares may be difficult, you know, I think they can show potential. And then, yeah, the Venus Uranus opposition, and let's see, those are Mars is loosely sextile to Uranus at that point. It's kind of loose, 5 degrees, but it's still it's gaining. There's probably a Mars sextile Uranus further down there is like 10 days later. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's definitely kind of, I think spontaneous fun is probably a good thing for the Venus Uranus opposition. And it can,
Yeah, and you might notice
maybe you get out of work early or something. It can be
like have fun with it.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And I mean, so the Venus opposite Uranus is in the afternoon for Eastern USA, or evening, 6:22. So if you can just do something fun, that would be good. On the next day, the following day, the 15th, we have Venus trining Neptune in Scorpio Pisces. So this is not necessarily a productive energy. It's nice for doing something creative, and that in the evening of the 15th. What would you suggest to do during Venus Neptune? And this comes on the heels of the full moon, which we'll get to next.
Yeah. So to me, Venus trine Neptune falls in the category of feel-gooderies.
The pink fluffies.
Yes. Yeah. So that can be like, definitely romantic stuff, or you.
Yes.
That's a great aspect for like a, sitting in the sauna or something, something where you're like, and where you can like enjoy things, or enjoy just kind of being in the moment, and just kind of like, not feeling the fear and all the other, clown world and stuff. It's like just being able to enjoy something, simple.
Yeah, there's a sweetness to it. And 2 days prior was the Uranus Venus opposition. And then as those 2 days go on, and that's the Uranus Venus opposition, obviously the aspect is one moment, and then it just starts to wane. But it's that joyful fun. And then Venus comes to trining Neptune 2 days later. It's like, something sweet, romantic. If you're in a relationship, have fun. It'll be a great date night or something like that. I don't know what day of the week that falls on, but it would be a good thing to put your focus on. Yeah. And then let's move on to the next day. The next day we have the full moon. That's the 17th. And the full moon is at 7:26 a.m. Eastern. And then we have Venus making a sextile to Pluto. And then Venus moves into Sagittarius in the afternoon. What is going on with the full moon?
Yeah, so to me, that's kind of I don't want to say the opposite of the 15th, but that's definitely a much more intense day. We've got the full moon, and that Venus sextile Pluto is at 29 degrees of Scorpio and Capricorn. So I think it's probably feeling pretty intense in the morning. I have found that usually right after the full moon, there's a big drop off in the energy level, and really, it takes the bite out of the intensity level. But too, that the full moon, so that means the sun is in Libra and the moon is in Aries for the full moon. So to me, that's when like Libra's involved. That's always about balance. That's always like achieving like Aries is independence, Libra is balance. So to me, that's kind of like finding your way. You may have to adjust your schedule or whatever to make sure you have time to meet all your commitments and things. Um, but then like right after that, the Venus sextile Pluto is much calmer, and then in the afternoon Venus enters Sag, so um, that Venus in Sag is much easier going than Venus in Scorpio. So to me, that day starts off kind of intense, but then you get into the afternoon, maybe you have a lot of work to do or something. You have a lot of intensity in the morning, but then by the afternoon, like things feel things feel looser.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that 29th degree is it's deep. I know a few people with Venus 29 degrees. Isn't that odd that I know a couple of people with that? One of them is an astrologer too. He wrote a book. I thought I had it. I was going to show it to you, but it's the 29th degree, Venus, the 29th degree. I think it is. It's a really good book. But he wrote about his experiences in relation to that. So it's kind of cool. But there is an intensity to that. I think the thing is that Scorpio doesn't want to see, it's kind of like Saturn in the sense where it doesn't really care about the superficialities. It wants to see the sincerity. And if the sincerity isn't there, it's like it can see through it. It can see there's nothing beyond the veil of whatever is being put in front. And I think that's where the intensity comes from. That desire to like see the beyond the superficiality. Yeah. And that can be an interesting, full moon because of the energy that's going on the same day of the full moon. It's not that it's not aspecting the full moon. It's just that it's going on during this time. I always think that, the full moons also give us this, going back to the full moons also give us this opportunity for completion of a cycle, and it's interesting that there's the completion of a cycle. I mean, the Venus sextile Pluto, that's going to be the last one that's while Pluto's in Capricorn, there's this shift, this completion of a cycle that's going on too. So very interesting day. So then we move on to the 22nd. The 22nd, Mercury trine Saturn, and then in Scorpio Pisces, then Sun square Pluto in Libra and Capricorn, and then the Sun moves into Scorpio. So yeah, Mercury trine Saturn, that's mental lists. Is it lists?
And lists of lists.
List of the lists of the list of cicadas.
Yeah.
We need that to run during. Yes, and color coded too at the same time. That's important. The visual aspect. But what else about the 22nd? The Sun square Pluto, I mean, that's like right on the heels of the Mercury trine Saturn. Well, no, it's like a few hours after. But I think that Mercury trine Saturn might have us. What? Did you mess it up again?
No, I was just wanting to see what day of the week that's a Tuesday. So to me, I mean, that's a day we can get a lot of stuff done because you've got multiple, maybe some of them tense, but all of them pretty good at focus. So like the Mercury trine Saturn, the Mercury Scorpio, the Sun square Pluto. Pluto's the ruler of Scorpio, and then the Sun enters Scorpio in the evening. So there's definitely a very heavy Scorpio flavor to that day. But
yeah,
with Mercury trine Saturn early, Sun square Pluto, mid-morning, and then Sun entering Scorpio. To me, like I expect that's a day where I'm going to have a lot of stuff to do, but my energy level, I think, is going to be high that whole day because with all the Scorpio energy and Sun square Pluto may be difficult, but it does give you that ability to, especially with Mercury trine Saturn, it gives you the ability to just
the staying power to just keep
Yes.
mentally going and doing your list.
Yes. Just grinding it out all day.
Check it all off the list and you're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense though too. And that Scorpio is, I mean, fixed water sign, it's like, I'm moving into the direction of like, I'm digging my heels in. I know this very well, Scorpio energy. Was raised by a pack of Scorpios. They taught me all about it, but yeah, no, I get it. And there is an intensity to that, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just it keeps it motivated. So I would say, if you're going to look at the month overall, like, have fun on that 14th and 15th with the Sun square Mars and Venus opposite Uranus, and then Venus trining Neptune. Like, have fun with that. Then get down to business on the 22nd. It's a good time to put your energy towards that. Then we move on to the 24th, and we have Mars sextile Uranus. That's another like active energy, and this happens in the afternoon. Oh, in the evening, sorry, 8:13 p.m. And this is in the signs of Cancer and Taurus. So at 26, Cancer and Taurus. So I would think Mars sextile Uranus. I know Mars and Uranus conjunction or squares can kind of be accident, potentials. Mars sextile Uranus makes me think of just energy continually movement, keeping going, keeping flowing, not stopping, maybe even if you are able to, you don't have like a 9-to-5 job or your time zone is just different than ours, staying up a little later and getting work done, accomplished or something like that. That might be a good time to do it, even between the 22nd and the 24th, as these aspects are getting closer and, further apart from each other. This is an opportunity to have an abundance of energy during the month and moving in that direction. You want to add anything about the 24th?
That Mars sextile Uranus is definitely high energy, and it's good. That's you're able to roll with the changes easily because Mars is sextile to Uranus. So even if there's bumpiness or whatnot going on, that Mars sextile to Uranus allows you to make adjustments to just keep rolling with the changes, keep rolling with the punches, and that's usually a pretty high energy day, but like on the good side.
Yeah. And then when we move on to the 27th, we have Venus moving into lovely Libra.
Hold on, that I screwed
that the right one.
All
right, you're 3 and out, buddy.
That's called a hat trick, where you get 3 in one day. So that's total. That's not even from that month. That's.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say Venus and Libra. Okay, we're just gonna forget it. We're just delete that section of the video.
Just delete that line. Just move on to the 28th.
We're gonna move on to the 28th. Okay, the 28th we have a couple things going on. Mars trines Neptune at 8:31 a.m. Wait, hold on. Did you like portal yourself to a month prior and just like sneak in that aspect? I'm just curious how that actually happened. It's kind of funny.
I have no idea. I have no idea how.
I think it's funny. I've done that before. That's why I asked, because when I was writing the horoscopes, it was like, oh, sometimes your eyes just go to the wrong place, but like a whole month, I don't know.
I think that's where I do too many things before I'm fully caffeinated, or I try to do too many things in a day and my brain starts getting goofy.
It's the worst, right? When you have the lack of caffeine. Oh my gosh, it's the worst. Yeah, okay, we'll go back to the 28th. I just had to know the answer to that one. All right. So on the 28th, we have Mars trining Neptune. that happens early morning, 8:35 a.m. in Cancer Pisces. And then we have Venus squaring Saturn at 9:35 a.m. So like about an hour afterwards. And that's in Sag Pisces. So this is actually, I don't know. I'm going to ask you first. What are you thinking about this 28th?
So to me, that's kind of a mixed bag. Mars trine Neptune is putting energy into something that inspires you, or putting some physical effort into, your dreams, working on a business that you want to have or something like that. It's putting some muscle or some sweat into that. And then the Venus square Saturn to me is just that's something, financial or work related that doesn't turn out like you thought it would. So you have to make some adjustments. I don't really like. I don't like Venus square Saturn or Saturn square Venus. That's usually that's a halt being put to something that you thought you had sorted out. And so to me, that's a readjustment period. But the Mars trine Neptune gives you, because those are pretty close together, actually, because it's 8:31 in the morning and then 9:35 in the morning. So the Mars trine Neptune is a little more powerful because Mars moves faster than Venus. Mars moves slower than Venus does.
Slower than Venus.
So it'll be there a little bit longer. So to me, there's some adjustments that need made, but the Mars trine Neptune kind of gives you the energy to push through to make whatever adjustments you need to make.
Yeah, that Venus square Saturn might be a good idea if you're needing to like be serious about something, like kind of put something in order, like you were saying, things that you have. It's not the easiest to do that, but it makes you think of taking inventory of something, but you're taking inventory of it and you're doing it, and it's like maybe you hadn't done it in a long time or something, but you're kind of putting it into an organized sense, the belongings of whatever you're taking inventory of. So there's a sincerity to that, like a realness to it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a good sincerity. It's just that there's a realness to that. So I agree. It's like an interesting mixture of energy on that morning. Yeah. Mars trying Neptune, though. I think that's more of an easier energy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of like, too, like Neptune is like spirituality.
So their ideals.
With Mars trying Neptune, like your body is in flow with your spiritual ideas.
That's a good way to think about it too. Yeah. That's a good way to think about it. So then we move on. We're getting close to Halloween, by the way.
Yeah.
What are you dressing up as?
A human being.
Oh my God, don't do that. I don't know if you have the outfit for that. Do you?
So I guess to jump back to the Pluto station, this is one of the, like, I've always like Halloween's like my favorite holiday. I've always loved Halloween.
Same.
And to me, it's one of the things I'm mad about because they've ruined it. They destroyed. Like we don't even get trick or treaters.
Oh, my neighborhood is amazing.
Out into the country, we've not had a single trick or treater any year, and people are so unhinged now that I kind of understand why they don't want their kids. I mean, we're pretty
go trick or treating.
We're pretty rural.
Yeah, anyway, well, I live in the suburbs, so yeah.
Yeah, it's not like people could walk house at, but even previous place we lived, it still it wasn't the same, and that was pre 2020.
Yeah.
Even then it wasn't the same. But now it's just like I think Halloween is a perfect example of something that has been ruined by people that needs to be reimagined. I think we need to find a way to make Halloween fun again, and to have activities and stuff, but not I mean, I understand the world's never going to go back to how it was in 1974 or whatever.
Right.
But I think it can be a hell of a lot more fun than it has been. I think they've just kind of killed it. And I think that's a way where, like, on a community level, you can maybe have something that is fun again for Halloween, and not just a bunch of dumb crap like they tend to replace it with.
No, and I know that's a thing that they started doing when I 2020, instead of going to the trick-or-treating for the houses and stuff, it was like they do the trick or trunk or something. I forget what they call it, but like out of
trunk or treat
or whatever. Yeah, I think I don't remember the name, but like then they would. I mean, it's cool because the kids want to have fun and stuff like that, but it's different at the same time. Weirdly enough, though, in my neighborhood, we didn't used to get a lot of kids, and I don't know if it's just my neighborhood or whatnot, but my mom lives a few miles from me, and she has had a big shift where she's the opposite. When I was a kid, I grew up in that neighborhood. We were just like all over the place. And now in my neighborhood, I mean, I've lived here for like 14, 15 years. It's been like, when I first moved in, it was like nothing. And now for some reason it's shifted where it's like a party in my street. Where I live is also not like an outlet. So there's a lot of like streets that go only into the neighborhood. So, but 2020 was nothing. And 2021, it started like all of a sudden it's like people, I'm like, where all these people come from? Like, I don't understand how come our neighborhood, but it's cool. I go with the kids from my family and we go out trick-or-treating. I get dressed up and everything, but that's just because I'm a little bit on the crazy side, but it's fun. Yeah, my neighbors laugh at me, but I don't care.
I totally miss being able to dress. Last place we lived, I would dress up to hand out candy.
Yeah, that's what kids do. I mean, that's what I do. I don't really care. And then my neighborhood seems like everybody, maybe they just got like, because before 2020, it was not like that. We would have nobody really come knock. Now it's like, you just walk in the street and it's like a party. There's kids all over. It's like one of my neighbors, one block over, has a whole, they put the tent up and everything. What is it called? Haunted house. They have a whole thing you could just walk through, and they go crazy over there. So that's like one block away. But I always walk with the little group of kids. And I mean, it's pretty crazy, but it's shifted so much. I think that maybe it's my area we got kind of screwed with the whole 2020 and not being able to do that, because that was something nobody did then in that year, and then just everybody's like, okay, it's an easy place to walk. So my neighborhood, because there's not a lot of traffic. So maybe that's part of it too. But yeah, I demand to have fun on Halloween. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, on the 30th, which is the day before Halloween, Mercury is in opposition to Uranus. And that is in Scorpio Taurus axis. Then we have Mercury, Mars, and Neptune in a water and grand trine at 27 degrees. And so this is leading up to our hopefully fun Halloween celebrations. What are you feeling about the 30th here?
I mean, to me, like, looking at it from that angle, like Mercury, Mars, and Neptune in a water grand trine. I mean, Neptune is your subconscious, Mercury is your mental processes, and then Mars is action. So like that's like, what day of the week is that? Is that a
I don't know. Wednesday? I think it's Sunday or Monday.
Like Halloween's Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday.
So that's a Wednesday. The Wednesday is the 30th, and Halloween is the on a Thursday. So to me, like that's like perfect like Halloween party lineup. I mean, nobody's going to have a Halloween party really on a Wednesday.
In the middle of the week. Yeah.
Yeah. So like nobody's probably going to do it the next week. If you're having a Halloween party, the ideal day. Ooh, that's not good either. Friday, October 25th is probably your day to do it, or Friday, November 1st. Or Saturday, November 2nd. Those are your prime Halloween party days. If you're throwing a party, those are the best days to do that. Friday, October 25th, or the Friday, November 1st, Saturday, November 2nd. Those are your best days for the Saturday, October 26th, and the 2 Sundays are not good, especially because right after Halloween, then we're less than a week before the
Aquarian.
well,
Pluto goes in Aquarius.
Before that's the presidential elections. Like,
oh yeah, that too. I didn't even think about that. Oh my gosh, are we that close to that? Oh my gosh, it seems like that's November is way away. No, it's not. It's a month and change.
We're 5 weeks away from that.
How did this year go by so quick?
I don't know.
I'm like shocked.
It was like May or June last I remember, and then seemed like every day lasts like 2 seconds. Like, I mean, we're at the end of September. I know.
I don't really understand how that is possible, but it is.
And some of that is that, that I think we've talked about this probably every month, is the Saturn and Pisces. Saturn is time. Pisces is, I don't know where I'm at. so
yeah,
I mean,
it's like I have no idea.
Right, you have no idea.
I've felt like that my whole life, although my Saturn isn't in Pisces. It is in the very end of Gemini. That's probably why.
Well,
but
I've got Mercury in Pisces, so I'm kind of used to that. But I think that's probably why I'm such a list maker and why I have calendars with dates and things written on it, is because I'm so used to that, oh crap, where did the time go? That I realized that I needed to
organize yourself a little more
structure to it to be able to keep track of it.
Yeah. There's I agree with that too, and I think that's something I've always had to work on myself. So it'll be a fun movement. This water grand trine isn't necessarily a bad one. It's not that anything's inherently good or bad, but there's movement fun, something maybe that will make this Halloween enjoyable.
Yeah. No, I think that is a good year for a Halloween party event. And even on Halloween, you got Mercury trine Neptune. So looking at it, and Mercury's in Scorpio, and at that point Neptune's back to 27 Pisces. But to me, that to me too, Halloween is when I was little, I had watched the Universal monsters, the Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy. So that's kind of Mercury and Scorpio and Neptune and Pisces. I mean, that's kind of the dark side of your imagination. So to me, that's kind of what I think of is the classic Universal horror monsters and stuff. So I think that's a fitting aspect for Halloween.
And isn't was it 27 degrees or 26 degrees when Mars and Uranus were conjunct? I can't remember if it's 26 or 27 a couple months ago. So I wonder if there will be, that was that weekend that Trump got shot at or something. I think it was the 27th, 26th or 27th. I have to look. But I wonder if there's going to be some, you know,
oh no, I think
reverberation of something happening during this time from that weekend, you know?
right. I mean, there's been multiple additional attempts since then.
Oh yeah, no, I think so too. It is 2619 was the degree of the conjunction.
And I would say that that's probably not going to stop.
I know. Yeah.
I would say
scary.
that's going to continue.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
And two, just kind of a Pluto at 29 Capricorn moment is just talking about the destruction of things. I mean, just look at all the celebrities recently that have either gotten in serious trouble, had big things that they've done uncovered. You know, just look at how like even there are some things with some musicians happening where they met some comeuppance or I'm trying to word this safely so this doesn't get banned. Some musicians who were judgmental about certain things had some things exposed about them that were unflattering. Multiple ones, several musicians have had that happen in the last few weeks.
Interesting. I maybe I don't know what you're talking about in that sense, but you know, if you could tell me.
Well,
I think I kind of know, but I'm not sure.
I'll give you the names and people can. But I'd say Dave Grohl, Perry Farrell, and Puff Daddy.
Oh yeah, I did hear about
those three. Have all had big events recently, and that's without me even thinking. And actually, you could say Taylor Swift also has had some.
Yeah, what happened with her? Like, I saw people talking about her, and I'm like, why is she even relevant? Like, I don't understand what. Like, and I didn't look it up, but I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, so I'd say that's another one.
Yeah, it's like wild, but I did hear about the Puff Daddy thing, so it's kind of it's bringing down the facade of, you know, the whole paradigms of everything that has gone in the past. This is the changing, the shifting of the gears, right? And moving into a new place, a new paradigm.
I think a thing that's definitely taken and is continuing to take a huge hit is celebrity worship.
Okay, yeah, who cares about? I mean, not to be rude, but like everybody has their own life. I've never been a celebrity worshiper, but I understand people are. It's just
there's been a lot
not good.
I think a lot of the celebrities are being knocked down several notches.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun. Do you have any last words of Mark wisdom?
No.
Part with us.
For
October.
I'm all out of Marxisms for today.
Marxisms. All right. So we'll wrap it up then. And this was fun. Oh, and just anybody that's watching till the end, if there's anybody still watching, I want to invite you to come to the Cosmic Patterns Conference. You can go to find them. It is a live in-person conference, an astrology conference that is in March of 2025 from March 7 through 9. And it's in Orlando, Florida. So I'll be speaking there. There's a bunch of different astrologers that are speaking there. And I've been interviewing the astrologers on another channel that I have. It's called Cosmic Connections, where I'm interviewing each of the astrologers. I have other videos on there, but I'm interviewing each of the astrologers that are going to be speaking there. So if you're curious about them, there's a lot of great astrologers. That I just put up the video that I did with Georgia Sathis, which she's a financial astrologer, and she's amazing. There's multiple other awesome astrologers up there that I've gotten the honor and an opportunity to actually talk to. I have some more coming up. I'm actually interviewing Rick Levine coming up next week. So I'm excited about that too.
Awesome.
And really good, fun connections with astrologers.
I'm check out the video about the 29th degree. I definitely am interested.
Yeah, Georgia's she's awesome. I really like her. I'm so excited I got to be able to have the conversations I've been having with them. So it's been fun. I've met a few of them, but I've met Rick Levine at UAC, but to sit down and have just an astrology conversation that's recorded and to pick his brain, it's cool. I love being able to do this. And hi, what's your dog's name, Rosie? In the background, I see her.
That's Stella.
Oh, Stella. I don't know why I said Rosie. Hi, Stella.
Stella, do you want to come say hi? That's Stella settling down for her nap, or continuing her nap.
It looks super cozy. Do you curl up there with her?
I do. We call it dog pile time.
Yeah, no, seriously. I do the same thing with my cats, although they're smaller. I have a little alcove off the side of my living room. I think it would be more for a formal dining room, but it's not in my world. It is a place that I have decked out for the cats, and I'll go lay down there with them all the time. It's fun.
There's Anubis, the fun-loving dog.
Oh, look it.
So they're constantly.
Do they snuggle ever or no?
He's older. He sleeps a lot. Oh. But yeah, I'll get on the floor and dog pile with him.
That's so cute. I think you should treat him a little better.
Yeah, they're not quite spoiled enough.
They're not. I can tell. They look really stressed.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't have a treat every 2 hours. There's hell to pay.
I know. I have to shut the door or I would be hounded by cats. Hello, it's treat time. All right. Well, this was a fun episode. Thank you guys for joining us. And we will see you on the next one next month. All right, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for watching.